Welcome to the first episode of the Rook podcast, everybody. I want to thank you briefly for all of the support from the Kitchen Occultist over the past 18 months on all platforms that we're active on. And I am taking a break from those creative ventures because I'm working on my Gnosis, and it is the biggest creative project that I've ever done in my life. And I wanted to still have an opportunity to do sit and talk discussions about everything occult related, especially like my path, because you guys really seem interested in that the most. So I wanted to start this off by talking about feeling safe in the dark, because right now the world is fucked. We are starting to see how many lies have been kept from us. We're starting to see governments fall apart, people becoming intolerant. On the opposite spectrum of that, we're seeing people become weaker because they're feeling more entitled because they've been broken down by the system. And one thing that I've learned with working with fallen angels for the past few years is to really calibrate yourself in the areas of discipline that you struggle with the most, because it teaches you how to maintain your power. It teaches you how to not get over fucking excited when good things happen, because you can burn yourself out. I've really learned to take a break from the disciplines that I'm good at, like my creative ventures and my career and stuff, and focus on the ones that were the most difficult. And in doing so, I've had so many breakthroughs about my own path, about myself, my psychology, and I'm not a clinical psychologist. I have no degree in anything besides going to culinary school. So when I speak on this platform, it is about perspectives. It's coming from a place of experience. I'm not some person with expertise in those areas. I will say, maybe aside from like astral stuff, because I've been doing that for decades. But outside of that, credentials can have polarities in them too, though, because a lot of people think that they have nothing but fucking their degree and it's their personality trait. So we'll talk about the laws of polarities in another episode, because I actually have a journal full of shit that I want to talk about, because I can talk about this stuff all day. But I wanted to elaborate a little bit on feeling safe in the dark, because during breaking down, I've been working out really diligently this year. I've been studying, and I've been studying since last year, business. I've been just really evolving, and these demons, these infernals, they help with that. And you start to really deep dive and ask yourself and them, what is the point? What's the point of making a person evolve and expand if they're not going to take our soul? We're all going to go through difficulties, whether you believe in the false god or not. And when you deep dive into esoteric research, which I'm not a scholar in, you'll realize that this system's been ran by a warlord, a war god, for fucking thousands of years, and it's been just rigged completely. And the fallen angels, they get blamed for doing the most frivolous stuff, right? Like, every single thing man does is the devil's fault. But then people forget. This is coming from a pedestrian perspective of psychology. Please, like I said, I'm no expert. I've just been working on myself, in my 30s. And I have learned a lot about scapegoatism. I've learned a lot about people who have a lot of discipline and then they get broken down and how they react. And one thing that's interesting to me is when the fallen angels fell, they were some of God's most strongest, right? Why would anybody think that the devil would just resort to the most ridiculous, nonsensical, horrible, simple things? Like, what does that do? Nothing. The devil is going to expand, and the devil is going to look at his blueprints and go, where the fuck are we? Where do we go from here? I think that that's where I wish people who think demons are evil and think that fallen angels are evil and think that, Satan is evil and he's out to get you and he's out to eat your children and stuff. First of all, the devil, in my understanding, is a collective of different aspects of these demons and fallen angels, and perhaps I'm wrong about that, and that's okay. Like I said, I'm learning and unraveling this. So I welcome those sorts of discussions. I just don't like the gotcha mentality, and I don't want to participate in it because, like, I'm not 20 anymore, and I'd like for people to just grow the fuck up and us try to say, hey, you go over there and research this shit for your spiritual path, and you go do that, and we'll just talk about it. You know, like, we can't seem to do that because all of us are trying to figure out what the fuck this is, who are we, what are we. And then when you start, relating more to the dark aspects of the universe, especially because we are in a system that's ran by war, and we all are affected by it, whether in big ways or small ways. And when I say that, I don't want people to think that I feel that I am affected like a veteran is, because that's disrespectful and it's super fucked up. And I get sick and tired of people taking their tiny violins and playing them all day about their fucking bullshit. Like, we really, really, really need to see what's going on here, because I see a lot of weakness in the world. And I don't think that we should come from a place of that gotcha mentality, like, oh, look at that fucking fool suffering. I think we really need to get to a point, not peace and love and kumbaya, but understanding that we're all victims of the system. A lot of people are broken down and complaining about nonsensical shit because they've been programmed like that. That's the result of generations of trauma, generations who have trauma from going to unnecessary wars and having their lives, especially the silent generation was like all sorts of fucked up. And then the boomers came and they just totally gave up. And now the rest of us are like 50-50 and trying to click in and say, look, shit's not going right. We really need to fix things, but we really need to stop fighting over whether this is like lime green or chartreuse. Like, who cares? And working with infernals and feeling safe in the dark isn't this glorified thing, like this emo, edgy shit. It's feeling centered when there is chaos and the unknown around you. Because from what I've been told by Belial, who's my patron, is we should treat ourselves, our minds and our bodies, as if we live in a lawless society, because he is lawless. That doesn't mean that we act lawless and start hurting people and hurting, innocent people and taking advantage and overpowering humans. It means that we should fuck around or find out physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and be balanced with the dark, and within the dark and within the light, because the dark and the light are a spectrum of its own in the universe, but within them is a spectrum. And I learned that because I had Samael visit me out of nowhere and wasn't expecting it. And this kind of thing has been happening this year in 2023, a handful of times, not very often, where entities that I don't work with usually are just popping in. And it's kind of like being allowed. It's not a lot, but I learned about his aspects, his dark and his angelic aspects through that meditation, and it changed me because I wasn't expecting that. And I learned about how gross the bright end of light is, and that it just goes full circle to evil, right? But we don't see things that way. But anyways, feeling safe in the dark for me is training myself mentally and physically without having an arrogance about it. And it's not because there's virtue working with demons or infernals. They don't give a fuck about that. They make that very clear to me when I, start talking about my moral compass. But it's mostly about having you confront your moral compass and see where you can fine tune it. And in doing so, I've been able to heal so much from other people that have hurt me that I had nothing to do with it. I know I did nothing wrong. And then other people that I have hurt, and they have also hurt me in bad ways, And there's love and there's peace in that. And you don't get that from, in my opinion, from Abrahamic belief systems, because it's all transactional. And I know within the occult it can be transactional for certain entities depending on the relationship you have. I'm not saying don't give offerings and don't pay respects, but it's kind of like how when you raise your kids right, they'll offer to help you because they can see you need a hand. And them helping you because they're going to get a benefit from it. You know, they're going to get to go to the pearly, golden fucking white gates of heaven and, you know, go on the Donald Trump streets of gold and skip around and eat honey and milk all day, or whatever antiquated, nonsensical things that people idolized when they were writing this shit down. Because I honestly feel in my heart a lot of it's misconstrued, and there is truth and philosophy to the Bible. Like I said, I'm not a scholastic. I'm not an expert at this. I just kind of do my research on my own and learn as I go. And I like when people correct me or lead me into different areas of my practice where I can research and know what the fuck I'm talking about. But I feel like the world is supposed to fall apart right now. And I'm sorry for the camera. We're getting used to all this shit. The world's falling apart, but it's an opportunity for growth for us, like it was for them, in my opinion. And I feel this in the pit of my stomach and in the center of my heart, because everything is getting exposed. Think about it. For those of you who are like, I'm an older millennial Gen X, and even Gen Z. Not you boomers. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry, but the boomers kind of fucked a lot of shit up, and I'm not anti-boomer. I do like making boomer jokes though. But if you're a boomer, I mean no offense. I really mean that. But what was I going to say? I got off track. Shit. No, we've evolved. We've gone from seeing things a bit linearly, like growing up like black and white, pretty like straightforward, to playing a game of chess with other aspects of our life. Like a lot of us think a lot differently, and we expect things to be accurate. You know, with movies and video games, for instance, we expect accuracy in marksmanship and tactical training and martial arts and, you know, occultism and anything. Where back like in the 80s, the 90s, we didn't give a fuck. Rambo was sitting there running and gunning, blowing out 2,000 rounds, and nobody thought, oh shit, that would overheat and fucking crank up and jam like, a rifle from World War I that was made out of tin. That's not what anybody thought in the 80s. All the boomers were like, oh, this is fucking cool, you know? And our generation's like, dude, that wouldn't fucking happen because we have technology again in life, because I obviously believe that we were technologically advanced at some point, and we are supposed to be, but they're not telling us shit, are they? But this is the thing. I do like conspiracies. I know people say, oh, she's a conspiracy theorist and now we gotta deal with this fucking kooky quack. Conspiracy theorists are better than sitting around watching The Bachelor or whatever stupid show and gossiping about what your neighbor's doing and how, you know, somebody across the street got a new car and they think they're, you know, that. I'd rather deal with people that have tinfoil conspiracies, because it means that they're trying to think for themselves and they're trying to figure things out. And I wish that we could get to a point where people understood that, right? So anyways, back to being like feeling safe in the dark. I feel safe in the dark because I feel peace, knowing that we're not a species of peace, knowing that we don't need to be sold this idea that we have to strive for bliss and that this life should be nothing but happiness and joy and indulgence. It's a balancing act. But anyways, I really think that we need to get to a point where we're communicating a bit better. And I think that being able to feel peace in the dark has taught me that you don't need to orchestrate your life so tightly that everything works out like this fairy tale with a happy ending, because it's not going to. It really isn't. I wanted to talk about, I have some keynotes, because I'll forget. If I'm going to sit and talk for an hour, fuck, like, you're going to have to just let me run with it. But I wanted to elaborate a little bit, like, on building our relationship with fallen angels. I can't speak in a general sense. I'm just going to speak generally with the ones I've worked with based on my experience and advice I could give. Because I do get asked this a lot. Like, literally, I checked my YouTube today, and I was asked about Lucifer, which is, like, a huge question that I get. And for me, it's just transparency. It's being very authentic. And my daughter, my eldest daughter, does astrology, like really, like deep into your star charts and knows this shit off the top of her head, and she's like really, really great at it. And she noticed that on my chart, like my mask, I'm an Aquarius, like across the board for a lot of shit. My mask is like me, you know what I mean? And that kind of freaks people out sometimes. Like, I know when to chill out. Like, I've been around a lot of like rich fancy people, and I'll be like, I'm from Monterey, you know, like, even though, because they don't know where the fuck the city, you know, south of there is, you know, where I'm from. But I've done shit like that. Like, I've totally masked. We all have. But I'm saying in general, my mask, I'm very like, I will say things how they are if it's approached. I'm not like a blunt person. I don't like to just meddle and be that bitch. Like, well, actually, if you want to know my opinion, you can get your fucking shit together. I'll do that shit if I'm your friend and you need to hear it, because I need to hear it at times, right? But I feel like that's a factor, not because I'm an Aquarius that the fucking demons give a shit. I'm saying in a sense where I don't have this sort of mask. They can see those layers that are insincere, even if you're trying to force sincerity, you know what I mean? Like, if you're trying to force giving a fuck about something, you know how people do that shit, like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. It's like, bitch, you ain't sorry. You just want to look fucking good. It's cool. I don't give a fuck when shit happens to you either. So, like, like, it's kind of like that. There's a freedom to that. But I'm not saying that I do that to people. I'm saying that depending on the situation, I probably would have. But being authentic in your own way, you know, and not having to force anything is the best way, because my type of personality, I've had to learn how to tone it the fuck back and pull back a bit. And some people, they need to push it forward a bit, right? I'll give you an example that I asked Belial not too long ago. I said, how come, not that it's any of my business or that I ever try to meddle in people's practices, but I notice a routine where a lot of practitioners, they are very reactive, you know, like on TikTok. Maybe some of them, they're RPing or whatever, but a lot of people feel the need to be reactive immediately over frivolous things. And I asked sincerely, like out of curiosity, right? Because my ass I have no problem, and that's a problem. When you have a big mouth, I've had to learn very, 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 very hard to shut the fuck up sometimes. No matter how juicy and no matter how creative and hilarious that thing is you have to say to somebody who's being a complete dickhead, you just need to shut the fuck up sometimes. Some people have the opposite problem where they never know how to speak up. And sometimes those are lessons for them. So it was really interesting for me to learn that, because like I said, I was just curious, like, well, how come if being reactive is kind of not healthy for you, you know, according to psychology, not that, you know, just this whole thing. And he explained that. And it's crazy too, because with psychology, like I said, I am not a psychologist. I don't want to psychobabble everybody with fucking shit I Googled. But when somebody is a scapegoat, they tend to cope with humor. They tend to become more intricate in their thinking. And they, you know, you have to, it's a defense thing. And it's also interesting how Belial works with the arts, including the physical arts, like martial arts. If a lot of people might not know that, and he does that. There's a lot of text on it too, but it's interesting because those are healthy tools for people who've been overly severely punished. And I know I'm going off of, you know, Dead Sea Scrolls and the Book of Enoch that I re-listen to like a lot. You know, I do when I do my chores, I just listen to audiobooks, and I try to just cram in as much productivity that I feel aligned with. I keep journals and I keep track of shit, and I hate it. Like, I'm not one of those people that loves fucking journaling. I just have like 8 journals because I need to, so I can get shit done in my life, because I've got a lot of stuff. I'm building an apothecary. I'm working on this huge, you know, cinematic project for everybody for my Gnosis, which is like, it makes me cry like once a week out of just like, what the fuck, I can't believe I can do this. And then also like, holy shit, how am I going to pull this off? So working with them teaches you that your path, they don't treat you like they treat everybody else, because that's the right way. And also for people to know, it's not because you're special. We're all special in our own ways, but we're all also not, you know. And some spirits, no matter where they're from, they're going to gravitate towards certain people because you're aligned with them. You might have history with them, It's just because your personality. It's just like when you know you vibe with that one person or that coworker at work and you're like, fuck man, we would have been besties in a past. Like that kind of shit happens with spirits sometimes. And it doesn't matter where they're from. In this case, they're from hell. So, this tea towel looks fucking gross. It's clean, I promise. It's super fresh. It just looks bad. But anyways, but building a personal relationship with, Lucifer, with Belial, with Azazel, with Leviathan, and some of the lesser demons now that I'm working with, it's not about kissing ass, and in my opinion, it shouldn't be transactional, like, well, I'll give you chocolate if you give me power. I think that coming in with, like, hey, I've got all of this potential and a lot of problems, like, can you please help me sort it out, and just, how do we do this, But then sometimes people, they'll come to you, they'll have a calling for you. Maybe they know what your purpose is. Maybe they just feel drawn to you. And then you might realize that, man, I've been doing this like every past life or some past, something. It's a very long process, and I'm still in the beginning journeys of figuring out who I was in past lives. And I think that's really delicate territory. I won't elaborate too much, but we can save it for another episode. But I think sometimes people will get too, what's the right word? Narcissistic about it, where they're like, oh, I was, so-and-so in a past, like everybody's been Marilyn Monroe and everybody's been Cleopatra. It's like, no, you fucking weren't, I feel like if somebody were somebody powerful, they would probably keep it to themselves. The only thing that I will say, though, real quickly before we jump back onto Fallen Angels is I really feel connected to Alice Roosevelt, and we have like the same birthday, like exactly 100 years apart, same initials, all kinds of shit, right? Like, and she, it's like, no shit. If you don't know who Alice Roosevelt is, she was Teddy Roosevelt's daughter, his first daughter, and she went to 600 parties in a year. And she took a photo, she flipped off the paparazzi smoking a cigarette wearing pants in the 1920s on top of the White House. Whatever the case is, that they'll show up, they have my back, but they teach you how to fight for yourself. And it's very crazy because I feel like I live a double life and I don't know how to talk about this shit outside of the like occult, esoteric, spiritual communities, because sorry, there's a fucking plane again. People get very, not philosophical. That's totally the wrong word. They get, fucking shit, man. I can't even think of the word right now. But they get all into themselves, and they start getting like very preachy. They get very like, I am the word. I am here. I'm prophetic. That's what I was looking for. They get very prophetic and start doing that shit. And that's very dangerous territory, in my opinion, because, I mean, look at the Dalai Lama. Do we have to fucking talk about that shit? Like, dudes over there doing all kinds of fucking grotesque stuff to children, and then just going, sorry, and then acting like everything's fine because he's so enlightened, and he's on that broad spectrum, that part of the brightness where he's so disconnected that he thinks it's okay to just violate children in front of the public. And then what's everybody do? Well, this isn't entertaining more, back to fucking the Kardashians. And that's where we are, and we all kind of, in a certain way, got to take a bit of accountability. We can't just blame the system, and it is the system's fault, from an educational standpoint, from an economic standpoint, from a spiritual, from a physical, from everything, from the food we eat, from the things we think, from the fear tactics they use, from some of the medications. And I'm going to talk about Big Pharma on this platform, and if people don't like it, you can get the fuck out of here and flag me. Come find me, because I'm not going to fucking back down from that shit. I'm not going to discriminate for people for what choices they make, but I'm not living in your world anymore where I have to dance around and sugarcoat everything so I don't trigger anybody. With that being said, I also don't need to be a complete fucking cunt and just do nothing but look for trouble to make people upset. What I am doing is I'm going to be as transparent as possible, and when I am wrong, I can reiterate what I'm saying by educating myself and being educated, and we can have a formal discussion like adults, because we got to stop arguing. And one thing I will say in this community, in particular community, is people are really broken fucking down. And people, because they're broken down, are starting to become very entitled in using the dark arts in that sense, which that's your prerogative. You can do whatever the fuck you want. I'm not worried. Like, I'm not going to sit and stress on what other people do, and I'll only speak up if it's absolutely something absurd. Like, on TikTok, there was somebody that was starting to go off about thinking that it's justified when you start bringing people's kids into black magic, and everybody went off on that bitch rightfully, because that's where you don't cross the line. Even the devil doesn't cross the line in that sort of sense, in terms of fucking, just doing it out of malice. Like, I know that the devil will take. I'm not fucking stupid. He's not rainbows and unicorns, but this ridiculous, like, I'm gonna punish you to punish other people kind of fucking bullshit is nonsensical. It's like, God does that shit, God's the one that causes all this shit, but it's the devil's fault. And I'm not trying to just be the devil's advocate. Like, I know that the devil, can do shit that I don't agree with. What the fuck am I gonna do about it? I can question it, though. At least the devil gives me the opportunity to question things. And that is a huge difference. Why I feel safe in the dark and why I don't feel safe in the light in this context is because when I ask questions to the devil, he answers them. And when he does lie, it's going to be because I need to be detoured to a different perspective. But with Yahweh, you question his ass and it's like, well, fuck you and all of you. It's just that narcissistic, reactive shit. And you learn a lot about the laws of polarity with that. You learn a lot about how it is absolutely unfair and ridiculous how the dark aspect of the universe is just seen as nothing but evil and weak and dumb and all this nonsense. Meanwhile, 80% of people that have reported being miserable in society in the developed world, and 75% of diseases are man-made because of the system. 75% of them. Most mental health disorders are also a reflex of this system. This is what my point is. I don't like to be just tie up your bootstraps and fucking deal with it, because that's boomer shit. And I think a lot of us have had too much of that, because a lot of us did get second jobs. A lot of us did do better, and we stopped eating our avocado toast and coffee so we can afford our mortgage, and stupid bullshit. Like, imagine telling people they can't eat a piece of bread with a piece of fucking fruit. that they need to cut back on that. You can afford that fucking down payment for the mortgage, and you can't, because people are saving like $150,000 for a down payment here, and they can't qualify for anything. In Australia, there's a big problem. They can't qualify for anything more than like a shack for $1.2 million, like in Sydney. And you can look that up. That's like super true. When I get better at this shit, I'll start popping on resources on here. But I'm a one-man show most of the time right now, so just bear with me. But those are the kind of polarities that I see and why I feel so safe on this path. But I've never been afraid of the dark. I learned a lot about, because I'm trying to figure out why and who am I? And I'm starting to figure out that some of these entities have been with me for a very long time. And when you navigate those sort of things, it's important not to feel like, in my opinion, this sensation of like, I'm so important and special. It's really not that. It's just there's a lot of us that can relate to that. And that's it. So, but when I ask questions, I get answers. And I'm not asking questions like, oh, why is this? Sometimes I do. You know what? I take that back, because there have been super times where I am putting in 5,000% effort in fucking everything. I'm like, you guys said to do this and this and this and this and this and this and this, and I'm doing everything and nothing's working. And why? And it's like I break down, and they're just kind of like giving you a head pat. You're like, you done there? And there's a lesson into that. It's like, stop thinking that was a lesson for me, because that was a huge problem that I had my whole life, being kind of like in survival mode and hyper independent in a lot of aspects, except for like emotional relationships and stuff. I was like super codependent in those areas. And as anybody who knows anything about, you already know why. I don't have to fucking go on about my life story. Like, you already get it, Those of you who get it, just get it. And I have learned that because I was so hyper independent and so controlling in those ways, because I freak out when I think, okay, if I'm just like the perfect parent and I do everything right and I fucking do this by the book, it'll work out. Because I don't like being told no when it's like a dream, when it's like aligned with me that I gotta do. I don't like people telling me you can't do that. I'll act like fucking Waterboy. Adam Sandler, Waterboy gets pissed off. He's like, starts fucking charging people and shit. That's my ass. Like, I do not like being told you can't, you shouldn't, you should just shut the fuck up and sit down. So I've had to learn how to fine tune that, because it's almost like I got caught subconsciously trying to outsmart the system. Like, well, if I just show up as perseverant as possible and just soldier the fuck up, and I've lost a bunch of weight this past year. I've gotten my finances in order. I know a lot about business, and I'm not trying to brag. Like, I'm skill building on shit that I continue to from my 20s and teens, and other things that I've adopted in my 30s now. And I've been skill building and fixing shit and doing shadow work and writing it down and being accountable and doing all this stuff, right? And still shit doesn't happen, and then I had to learn that lesson that it is so like ridiculous to try to fix everything around you and thinking that you can do that with magic by just solving the problem, when really you have to fix all of this in here, all of the chakras too, like in all seriousness, because they're energy channels that get blocked up for different aspects of ourselves, spiritually and physically. And they go into that sort of stuff in different ways, maybe not calling them what a lot of people call them. So when you start clearing out all of that clutter, you can learn how to transmutate that clutter, and you can learn how to like get through all of that clutter and gunk and read it and study it. Like, if your heart chakra is clogged and gunky, how to read that energy. Hecate works really great with like reading energy between the lines too, with things like, for fuck's sakes, why haven't I done this for the past 25 years work? Why didn't I work with her before? I just never had a connection with deity. And I've talked about this in the past. I've always believed, I just did not have that. And I was very like agnostic. And at one point I was convinced I was atheistic, but then I felt wrong about that. I felt that is really like leaning toward arrogance. Sorry, my glasses are super foggy. Like I said, it's humid, it's 5,000 degrees outside, and, I'm probably going to die on camera, but I'm not going to die on camera. I don't know. I would fucking... not want to die on camera and then listen to some stupid song, like that is a fear of mine. I don't know. This is a weed thought real quick. I have this fear of like dying and some stupid song is playing when everybody finds me, like fucking John Mellencamp or something. And I don't know why, but every time I hear something like Tom Petty and the fucking Heartbreakers or some random song, I'm like, fuck, I hope they don't find me to this song with this lyric, you know, sucking on a chili dog behind the tasty freeze. Like, I don't need to fucking be found in some awkward position like that. So I just think about that shit. And speaking of weed thoughts, I totally had a Tom Petty thought not too long ago either. Like, I was exercising here in the office, which I do every single day now, and I have this routine, and I act like a fucking adult, and all this stuff. And Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers came on, and I was like, I'm fucking convinced that Randy Newman is the voice of Tom Petty. That's another point I want to talk about in cannabis with spirituality, how stupid it is to just think that that's the answer, because that's the stupidity of marijuana sometimes. But it helps me get through my workouts, because having fibromyalgia and doing this shit's totally not fun. And that was Lucifer's suggestion, in all honesty. Yeah, there's a comfort in it. I feel very perseverant, and I feel very aligned with myself, and I feel excited, and I don't want to fall victim of, I know that those of you guys can relate to this in any aspect really, where shit starts going well for you, and then you want to start preaching to people and telling everybody, you got to do this too, or you got to try this, or you got to invest in crypto, you know, all this stupid shit. I don't want to come across like that. And feeling like high on happiness and energy is something I've had to really just try to stay balanced too. Like, I've learned working with fallen angels is to give yourself space when you're feeling like shit, or when you're feeling like euphoric, but then just kind of ground your energy and be level, because then you can handle the things that you're after. You detach from things. I don't feel as attached to things anymore. I'm sorry if the chair's squeaking. It's going to be a bit rough. I want everybody to be happy when they're listening to this and not think, you know, all these other background noises. So please just bear with me, okay? But I love things. I've always loved shopping. I've always worked hard for my money. Even as a teenager, I worked really, really hard. And I shopped fucking hard. Like, oh my gosh, man. And, you know, when I got older, I, you know, obviously had responsibilities and bills and family and stuff like that. And I still shopped. I still justified it. Like, well, I work hard, so my bills are paid. I got some savings. I'm going to go fucking shop. And now I like to shop for utility. And when I receive a gift or like a magical item, or I find something, it means a lot to me. But then it is what it is. And I'm not saying it's necessarily because of working with infernals, but just in general, it's like a response. I don't know. It's kind of like how working out is for me now. It's not about getting skinny. It's not about anything like that. It's about the types of workouts I'm doing. I'm learning new things about my body, and my body is improving and responding to that work. And I look forward to it every day. And I have breakdowns sometimes because I do have fibromyalgia. And I don't want anybody to think that, oh, you know, it's taken me 4 fucking years to get to this point, to be honest. Like, it really has. And, but working with infernals helped with that, because like Lucifer told me, I was in tears one day, and Australia barely legalized cannabis, like around COVID, maybe a little bit after COVID. And so you had to get it how you used to get it, you know? And I don't take fentanyl or nerve blockers or antidepressants. If they work for you, they work for you. I'm not going to ever sit here and say that's good that you take fentanyl. Like, I'm sorry if you take fentanyl, because that shit fucking kills a lot of people. And I can't do that to my family. And having, you know, being a child of addiction and stuff like that. So I had to go that route. But not having pain management medicine, you know, available to you, and learning how to expand to deal with pain was really hard. And I felt like just giving up a lot of times. It's not easy. But because I was able to slowly coexist and learn how to coexist with it, and not even that, but tap into it and transmutate that energy, like working with Leviathan super helped me with that. So if you have chronic pain, there's a tool for you. But it's not easy, and I think everybody can do it. I don't think that there's just a certain type of breed of person. I think we've been bullshitted, and we have been just completely dumbed down, and we've been just broken down. Everybody's broken, and we're all yelling at each other. Oh, fuck those gamer incels. Fuck those girls. They're whores. What's their body count? All this stupid, nonsensical shit, right? Like, let's get it together here. Let's act like fucking reasonable people. And I'm not saying that you're doing it. We all have. Like, I'm not going to act like I've never argued with stupid strangers on the internet before. Like, please. But what I am saying is, I also don't want to come from a standpoint of being like self-righteous, like everybody, can we get along? No, what I'm saying is, can we wake the fuck up and just have a difference in our opinions? And if people want to, because look, an armed society is a fucking polite society. I don't care what anybody thinks. Set aside all of your differences right now about politics, especially American politics. I get it. But the reality is, if all of us had a bit more fortitude in certain areas, which I'm learning, I'm not there yet, I don't think that we would have as many of these problems. And I'm not saying, hey, working with the devil is the solution. It probably is to an extent for a lot of people, because this is absolutely absurd. It's 2023 and people are still, and the world is fucked, and people are like, it's the devil's fault. And when's God gonna fix it? Why is God allowing this? Because he's a war god, and he feeds off that. And that aspect of him overtook the other aspects that he was supposed to be. And I'm not even go there because we don't have enough time. I don't have enough space on my fucking camera to deal with that shit. But because it's just really weird. Like, I believe in synchronicities, obviously. I believe that everything, we are aligning and manipulating our reality to align with other things. You know, it's not just like, my problem with witchcraft was that I was struggling with is like, I'm going to just fucking change everything. And it's like, no, bitch, you ain't changing shit besides fucking shooting yourself in the foot, you idiot. And that's where I had to really like learn, like, yeah, no, that's not how to do it. You need to just clean up your own street, and then you'll start to attract other clean neighborhoods, and then you guys can work together, you know? So, I am very grateful for this path, and I am very grateful for people who like super try to help me out too, because I get a lot of messages on Instagram. I get a lot of helpful stuff. You don't need to exhaust your energy. I really don't want people to feel like they need to, but I also know that people like to talk a lot like I do, and can probably talk about this all day, and I always feel weird about that because people will send like long, lengthy responses, and I'm like, oh, I just want to message each other and talk, and you know, it's kind of not appropriate. So but yeah, I feel very aligned with this path, and I feel very safe in the dark, because working with them, they train you to deal with this shit. They're not traumatizing you to taunt you. They're not trying to be mean. I haven't had one single experience that was like out of malice. I haven't had one like vindictive thing happen. I've had getting kicked in the butt a few times. I've had some tower moments, and it's like, yeah, I saw that one coming, you know? Or I have not listened and then shot myself in the ass, and it's like, well, and you know, my experience, Belial is very forgiving, but that doesn't mean to like abuse that. I'm not suggesting to just do what you want, like a kid that's got everything, one of those Xbox squeaker kids. It's like, well, my mom's gonna make me a sandwich. Like, go ahead, have that attitude. I dare you to. But what I've learned is you don't always need to be severely punished for the mistakes that you make. And I feel like because of trauma, because of stress, because of the system, a lot of us struggle with that, or have been on the receiving end of that. And we've been on the giving end of that too. Those of us who are parents, I just talked about that the other day on Instagram. I felt really guilty because I yelled at my two eldest kids, and I'm not a big yeller. I don't like fucking yelling. I like talking and giving solutions and saying, you guys are pissing me the fuck off, so I'm going to go cool out so I don't pop off and start acting fucking hood as fuck in this house, because that's what I do. I go and I try to just do that, but then when I catch myself getting upset or stressed out, reactive, it's like I'm failing as a leader here. And then you start to see perspective shifting. Okay, now I understand why that happened to me, but I'm not saying to excuse it. I'm saying it helps you grow past it, and then you heal, and you not forgive, but you persevere by realizing you outgrew the behavior that others had, because you got to start tasting it and outgrowing it yourself. I'm not saying that's the only time that I've ever like shouted at my kids or anything. It's just not something that I want to have as a consistent thing in my environment or their environment, for sure. But I did notice lately, just not, I can make every excuse. Oh, I have an autistic child and I have fibro and I have a business to run and I'm sleep deprived. It's like, you have to take that as an opportunity to fucking get your shit in order and not take that out on other people because they goofed up a bit, because teenagers goof up. You have to find that fine line of accountability and consequences, and then taking that as an opportunity to grow. Not like the fucking boomers knew anything about that when they punished us. For us, it was just like torture. If we did one thing, it was just like, we just want to see them fucking burn. We're just a barbaric species, and I think a lot of it's due to social conditioning. I'm sure a lot of it's nature as well. We do have our primitive aspects to us, after all, no matter how advanced we'd like to think that our society is. But I will say, working with these amazing infernals, they teach you what the fuck the reality is, and but they also tell you that some of it's their perspective and experience too. That's the thing. Belial's always called the king of lies. And I found this interesting as a former scapegoat myself, who has absolutely lied when they've been terrified, for sure. But he's always known, and in the book of Enoch, that he's the Lord of Lies. Everything I see is like the Lord of Lies, and there's no explanation. He just does wicked things. He exposes the narcissism, and that's why he's called the liar, because that always happens in psychology. The scapegoat is usually the one that's the most fucking free out of all of them, and the one that's always fucking blurting out shit and has something clever to say in response to someone's idiocy, because they can't have their power taken away, which was another good point that he told me literally not too long ago here in my office in the middle of my workout. I didn't want to be there that day. That's been my thing, is like, I don't want to work out, and I just get through it and I go through the motions, and then afterwards I'll take a shower, and if my day permits, I'll do like a quick meditation in the dark. And I do use cannabis at times during my workouts, during a flare-up, because that's where I am on my path with chronic pain, is I'm able to challenge it. I don't have any degenerate disorder, so like with fibro, I want to make that clear. Please don't even fucking, I don't think that people need to do what I do, but because that's a really like fine balance, I think, to share that information with people. Like, I don't want younger people to think like, oh, okay, just go not take your meds. I don't have any degenerative disorder with chronic pain, so please take your medication if it's working for you for any ailment. Like, I might be against pharmaceuticals for myself because I almost died taking them. I went psychotic and almost killed myself on accident multiple times, and I have fibromyalgia as a result of that, and I was hospitalized for 10 days because my pancreas was shutting down. So I kind of fucking got my shit together, and working with these spirits helped with that. And when I was talking to Belial during this workout, and he was talking about scapegoatism and about being the Lord of Lies, I kind of had that epiphany, right? Because sometimes when you're working out and, like all this trauma will come up. I've been doing this thing where when I go to failure, I'll push through to try to get like another rep in, and like I said, I'm not like, hey, you got your protein, bro. Like, I'm obviously not the epitome of fucking physical, embodiment of super physique. I am on my path there, man. Like, for this and for this, it's not about any of the other shit. Like, I think everybody needs to feel empowered in their own fucking way. Like, please don't take it like that. But what I've been doing is when I hit failure, I'll just kind of push further. And I listen to a lot of crazy people that do that, like on the internet. And when I do that, I crack open and I start like crying, like I heal. And there's something that comes out that I didn't know, or something like, whether it's like an ego, like a mini ego death, or something, somebody, like, it's not so much other people anymore, but it's almost like trying to figure out where I am and why I am. And Belial I had this epiphany. I was like, man, they call you the Lord of Lies because, like, it's fucking dumb. And you realize that you realize the structure of it, the narcissistic structure of theology. And you almost want to talk to experts that are pro-Yahweh and go, how can you stand by this when it's obvious? Like, there's no explanation for some of these entities for being vile and wicked and evil. It's like the angels wanted one wife. They did fornicate, but they didn't go and like rape and pillage all of fucking humanity. They all took one wife for themselves, according to the book of Enoch, if we're going there. Some people are going to be pissed that I'm going like past Goetia stuff. I am still learning about all of this. I'm not an expert, but I really feel gravitated about learning about that aspect because, first of all, my patron told me to read the book of Enoch, and I was like, oh, I've done that before. I don't, and then I did again and again and again and again, and I'm like, that's really interesting. They never gave an explanation as to why. They just said because. And that sounds like something an unhealed egomaniac would do to somebody who can expose their bullshit. And I asked him in my room, I was like tired, I was feeling sorry for myself because I just had a really hard day and I was happy I got through my workout, but I was like still not happy about it. And I said, why is it that after you fell, you were able to maintain your power and that broad spectrum of being an angelic being? I'm just, I ask these sorts of questions because I'm curious, and I have that sort of relationship with this entity where I can. Maybe some I wouldn't. It'd be like, a bit too personal or something. But with Belial, I feel very, very comfortable. And he said, because not even God can take your power away. And he said, think about that from multiple perspectives. And he gives this sort of like he loves watching people think, and it makes fucking sense. First of all, he can't take that energy source away because he's not powerful enough. But secondly, because he is a god of war, he's going to allow this. It's his vice. And that's something that I want to conclude with this first episode. The devil, or Lucifer, or an aspect of Satan, or an aspect of Samael, or an aspect of Beelzebub, or an aspect of any of these amazing, intricate, really interesting, and very, very, very intelligent beings, they are God's vice, because he is a god of war. He's war hungry. And that shit was just like a mic drop, like always for me. So I think that's what I'm going to leave it at that. It's needed. The universe is never going to be love and light. It's almost like in Yosemite National Park, they got rid of all the wolves, right? And all the deer ended up like terraforming the land and fucking it up and drinking all the water and eating all the foliage. So they had to reintroduce a couple wolves back into their society for balance, because they thought, well, all the wolves are eating all the little cute deer and all the super yummy animals and the cuddly ones. We got to get rid of them. They're just too fucking hungry. And they got rid of all of them, and they overtook. So like the good, the peace, the calm, it's not good in excess, and the darkness is also not good in excess. But the thing is with fallen angels, I'm not trying to give or paint this picture that they're trying to be like, we should all be balanced in peace. They are like, look, it's your path. What do you want? And I'll tell you what will work for you, given the information that I know about you, which is everything, and what will be of your benefit. They help you align what your goals are, what your soul, that thing in your soul where you feel like, I'm supposed to be doing this. For me, it's always been content creating, and it's not coming from this nonsensical place of fame or, I want to make money. I'm not going to say that, but it's even that. It's like, I just want my kids to have everything that they deserve, so they can continue their goals and their journeys, because they are. I got 2 older ones, and they're doing fantastic, and I'm fucking so proud. They're nothing like my ass, but that's where it comes from. It's not about getting a Maserati. It's not about getting a Balmain jacket. It's not about buying some stupid thing. You can appreciate those things perhaps, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day. And I think I learned a lot of humility with that, because I realized how much of a capitalistic shrill I was when I was in my 20s and when I was younger. And I thought, because I was outgrowing some of that behavior, that I had the right to be on my pedestal and kind of like pass judgment on other people. And to an extent, I think, yeah, we do need to make some changes, maybe, like, because I think we're all a bit guilty of that. Like, every fucking thing in this room is probably made by a child in China in a sweatshop, in a building that's like not up to code. And that doesn't make me feel fucking right at all. Like, it really doesn't. So I think about that sort of shit, because the devil will call that sort of stuff out when you try to act too self-righteous, or when he'll challenge your moral compass. And not only will he challenge it, but Lucifer does this a lot. He'll take you down a rabbit hole so you can come to the conclusion if you still have the same opinions based on the new information that you're given. And when you're given new information, there's multiple journeys you can go on, and I'm not saying, like, for instance, maybe like, what is a social hot, like abortion right now? Let's talk about that one, right? If somebody, I am pro-choice, and I'm always going to be fucking pro-choice, and I don't even want to have this discussion, because it's crazy what's going on in America right now. I have daughters. I have a 20-year-old daughter that doesn't have the same rights that I did when I was 20 years old. That's fucking wild to me. Well, maybe in California, though, at least for now, but like, I don't think California would change that. But let's say somebody was like anti-abortion, right? Let's say somebody was, because that's probably somebody exists like that, right? Like, that gravitates toward the devil, but they're anti-abortion. You'll go on a path of all of these intricacies. You might have dreams, or meet people who have and had fucked up stories, or you will have synchronicities so you can learn a lesson. And for me, it was with drugs, because, as I've said, I am a child of addiction. I've experimented for sure. I'm glad that I was surrounded by friends that kept me grounded when I was a teen and 20s, because I think I would have been a fucking disaster. If I would have gotten rich and or famous or something in my 20s and my teens, I would have died. I would have been fucking a disaster. I was so broken. But I also was really angry, and I had a chip on my shoulder when people would start drinking too much, because I thought, well, I drink and I do a little coke and I do this, but I got it under control, and these people don't, And then when you get into a situation like having chronic pain, and then you're like 300 pounds and you've got children, and you might have been energetic before, because I always, no matter what my weight has been, I've personally had a lot of energy because I was young, and I was, my career as a chef, you're working hard, all this stuff. I had to work to maintain that, to be honest, because I lost weight before that. But when you get struck with chronic pain, and it's out of nowhere, and you're like, I was like stuck on the couch in the bed. It was like having surgery without any medicine. It was crazy. And I'm like, I can't, no. And then you have to face shit that you've been affected by. Like, there's a fork in the road with that. And I took the hard path. And I'm glad that I did. And I took the hard path not out of self-righteousness. I took the hard path because I have the fucking capacity to. And because I have 4 children who need me to take the hard path. And I think that's where people get upset, when people start to be a bit perseverant, like on our path, for instance. I notice people that are anti-black magic and anti-left-hand path, and it's supposed to be love and light, the fucking Wiccan boomers. I'm just kidding. Sort of. They will become so self-righteous sometimes and say like, well, you're doing, it's like, no, somebody stole my identity and was profiting off of me on TikTok. I fucking hex their ass. I will do it again. There is a fine line between making a mistake and hurting somebody intentionally or doing something, but you also can fuck around and find out really, really quickly. And I am not the type of person that will threaten. I don't believe in that. I think you should just get in and get your shit done and be quiet about it and get out and move on with your life when you have to defend yourself or whatever it is. I don't know. That's my opinion. That's my experience. I've also had the experience of just talking too much and exhausting your energy. And those were lessons collectively that I learned, that you can't have your power taken from you. And you can have all of that energy you have and refine it a bit. That doesn't mean out of virtue, like I said. I'm learning how to conduct myself in a calm and really, really, really like tactical manner because it's best for my mental state. And I can't control if people are going to be fucking stupid. And honestly, the more, because I've been on this path, I did become a bit isolated, not because of the, the connotation, I actually have had nothing but support from everybody. Like for some reason I've been like really blessed in that area, and anybody who doesn't agree, I just don't give a fuck enough to care what they think. So that's a thing. But in terms of my family, my support, no one judges me at all. Everybody's like really happy. Like, I don't know. But it's just a big part of, we all understand in our household, just because we all did our own research on our own accord, honestly, which is crazy in itself, that these aspects exist, and they don't necessarily mean that they're evil. It just means that we've been manipulated for thousands of years, and we've been fucking fighting for thousands of years over the same shit. And we are expecting things to get better, and we are expecting things to just magically be comfortable. And they're not going to be. They're never going to be. What we can do is take the opportunity with all of this fucking shit that everybody just threw on your lap and sort through it and make the most of it. Kind of like what they did with the underworld, according to, and this is very loosely according, like Paradise Lost, which I just read like a few months ago. So like, please don't just like, I'm not holding that like fighting to the death on that hill. I'm just saying it's an interesting perspective because it makes sense, and I have asked these questions, and there are systems in place in other areas of the universe. There are systems in the underworld that I have seen, and it really seems like somebody who has the fortitude, like one of God's favorite, isn't going to just sit in hell and go, oh, well, fucking, I guess I'm just going to go hurt some kids because this asshole took everything from me. No, I think the devil's going to fucking sit down and say, what resources do we have? What capabilities do we have? Where do we go from here? Because that is the war. It's not even a war against good, it's a war against like actual justice and balance. It's crazy. So I know that I'm leaning on towards sources that can't be like completely validated as truth, but nothing really can. Like, people will give the Bible a complete validity, and every revised version too, even though it's been lost in translation like umpteenth times over again, people will still give that energy, and that's why it has so much power. But I honestly believe, because, and like I said, like I do, when I read these sorts of texts, poetry, codexes, other people's grimoires, all this other stuff, I think for one, you should have balance with that. I don't believe in doing that predominantly. I think for certain things you should, for historical context and putting pieces together. But I also think that you shouldn't just read everything and do what everything. I think you should read everything personally, but I don't think you should like take it as like the law. If you find like a really good book on Satanism or just magic in general, and you're like, it has to be this way. There's a lot of stupid shit out there, and honestly, it takes practice, and it takes asking questions, and sometimes those questions might have answers that aren't true, but they will lead you to the truth, because that's, even gentle parenting will do that, right? Like, you would never, if your child is wearing something really ridiculous, but they're, dressed appropriately that would protect them, age appropriate and all this stuff, but they're wearing some goofy fucking noodle shit, you are going to tell them they look fabulous because they feel fabulous. It's not your opinion. They're not there to accessorize your life. They're human beings. My kids wear shit all the time. I'm like, what, you guys are fucking crazy. I did the same thing. Who the hell am I? I dressed very eccentric when I was younger, and I still do when I'm not like doing chores all day. But that is, sometimes we'll say like, you look fabulous, and it's not like you're trying to be fake, but you know that they feel fabulous, and you see that you see that. You don't see the, taco print shorts that they're wearing with the polka dot fucking, red and yellow shirt, and their hair with 5,000 chongis on it, and 2 mixed match socks and 2 mixed match shoes. All you know is they're trying to find themselves, because I know I wore some stupid fucking shit when I was younger, and I used to do my eyebrows really thin, and they're so bad, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I also pierced my own nose when I was 13 too, so that's a thing. Like, I had a friend give me a tattoo. I just did some crazy shit, but and it was like a handmade tattoo for 13. It was a witch's hat. Oh my god, it's not even there anymore. Sometimes it's okay to tell a little white lie if somebody's feeling really good and it's just not your style or something, right? Like those sort of, that's okay. But it's also good if your child is, I'm just letting you know, those of you of teenagers, it's also good to kind of guide them, like, look, I know what you're trying to do, but it's all over the place. Let's just fine tune it. You want to wear this? You want your taco print shorts? Here, let me help you out and try it on. If you don't like it, fucking just don't listen to what I say. But, those are like the experiences that I've had personally. But like I said, I've come into this for internal reasons. I feel really like I'm trying to figure out, why do I feel so comfortable with this path? That's where I am now. Because when I say comfortable, that doesn't mean easy or fun. Actually, sometimes it's really tedious because I'm tired. I work really, really hard, and I run my house really well. Like, I don't know how it's, I tell my husband, I don't even know how I fucking do it. It's probably the edibles, because I've got 4 kids. I've got 2 that I'm helping, get into university for animation. We've got a homestead. He does just as much domestic stuff as I do when he was home, by the way, because people on TikTok were like, I bet if your fucking husband doesn't do shit, it's fucking misogyny. My husband cooks dinner. He does he fucking helps. It's like, people are just so stupid. But anyways, I have like a lot to do, and there are times where I just want to go to sleep. Like, as soon as I hit the pillow these days, I'm asleep. And if I wake up, it's because fibro or something, right? I'm sorry if I'm talking about it too much. It's just, I've overcome so much in the past year alone with chronic pain, and I don't need marijuana as much, and I feel better mentally, and I can do so much. Like, I really can. And I'm running my house, and I'm like, I can do it all. No, I cry fucking twice a week. And I am still sometimes like, how the fuck did I get through today? So I want to make that clear, because there's too many fake ass bitches online acting like they're just fucking Cinderella with 50 arms and they're just happy. No, I am sick of cleaning, and I am sick of kids sometimes, and I'm sick of gardening, and I'm sick of sunshine, and I'm sick of everything. So what I have to do is just deal with it. And being able to become so more disciplined in my life and feel so just confident on this path without that layer of arrogance, though, because that can happen, and that does. Sometimes I see her pop up like, oh hell yeah, this is fucking cool that I get to do this. This is so amazing. My life feels really interesting to me. My life has always felt very, very interesting to me. And I know that sounds very full of yourself. Like, I'm just such an interesting. I feel like, come on, why isn't anybody seeing what I'm seeing? Like wake the fuck up, guys. Come on, why don't you see how fucked this is? Like, I feel like since I was really young that I've been roaming this planet with like rose tinted glasses, but one of the lenses was cracked out. And then when I really started to work on my path, they were just smacked off, and your eyes were also plucked out, and you're like, now you're gonna see in the fucking dark, bitch, because it's even worse than you thought. my life has changed dramatically in so many ways for the better. And it's not in this euphoric way where people would think, oh, the devil's giving you what you want. Oh, he's going to take your soul. He's giving you all this now. He's just... Infernals helped me keep shit... They've kept shit real with me and helped me get aligned with my potential and things that I've been putting off for a long time. Things I've put off because of procrastinating or because of lack of discipline. Things I've been putting off because I felt bad about myself. Things that I had no direction in, but I've always been like, I have something to say, but I don't know what it is. Like that sort of thing. I always have shit to say about like every topic. And they felt like it's a waste to just not say anything. And there's a lot of you who contact me on Kitchen Occultist who has like 600 people on it. It's not a lot, you know. It's really, I'm happy for that. But like you guys will say, like, I wish I can film too, and I don't know how because I feel this and I'm self-conscious, blah blah blah. If you feel like you have something you need to get out, just do it, please. Don't do it. You're not gonna, you know, when I get this done, or when I dye my hair, or when I get this big thing happen. Just do it. Or if that's really important to you, write down that goal, how much it's going to cost to take care of that. Give yourself a fucking time frame. Work with Mammon on this sort of stuff too, by the way, because he will help you learn how to become a business person like super dupers. I feel like I understand so much how people think in terms of business and money, because I was like, fuck numbers. I read tabs on guitar. That's enough math for me. And I do conversions for cooking. That's enough. I have changed a lot. I'm studying things in sciences and mathematics because I didn't when I was younger, and I should have. And in order for me to go forward with my goals, I'm going to have to be proficient at some of those things. And they will teach you how to boss the fuck up. Infernals will teach you to be the best version of yourself and to be the voice of your own community in your own way. I'm not a voice of any community. I don't mean it like that, but I mean in terms of there are so many of you who are terrified of sharing what you have to say or the experiences you have, but want to because you feel broken down by people, or you're dealing with religious oppression, and then some of you can't because of where you live. And I that was humbling for me, by the way. I've had plenty of people tell me that where they live, they would be killed, like if they came out as with their practice as occultist or just witchcraft, like in. That really, really made me realize how lucky I am, because I bitch and snivel just like the next Westerner. And that really inspired me to take witchcraft in a different light, like with cooking and stuff. I have always respected it, so I caught myself thinking, like, respect it more. It's not that. I feel like as a witch alone, I didn't understand what I was doing. I knew, I understood, but I didn't have the language to translate what energy work is. And when you start working with these spirits, they'll show you, they'll give you a language for it. And they'll teach you to be perseverant. And like I said, like not even God can take away your power, because we are powerful. And it's not because we're more powerful than some false god. In a sense, yes. It's because it's the exchange of energy. We can't be destroyed. They can't be destroyed. It's we have to shift. And it's going to take a long fucking time. And what I really believe is we're going to get to this place where we're going to understand exactly where we are, and we're going to keep bouncing back until we fix it. Because I really am convinced that reincarnation is real, based on the experiences I've had, based on people that I've talked to that have far more experience than I do with this sort of stuff. I absolutely believe that magic is just science's question mark. And I believe that if you want those answers, some of these demons are going to give them to you. Because you forget, like, I talk about Belial a lot. And I've had people complain about that. Like, well, why don't you talk about... I don't work with other spirits daily besides Belial, Lucifer, and Hecate right at this moment. Other ones, it's for other things or certain elements of a project. I work with Inducius a little bit now. You guys saw that ritual I posted. There's Stolas as well I've been connecting with. There's a few others that I connect with, but I don't share my practice with you guys. I share some of it. I don't really think that it's healthy to share everything unless you feel like you should, then you should. That's just for me. I don't speak on behalf of other people. I don't think we need that sort of shit in this genre of spirituality anyways. I think what we need is people that have ideas and pain and perseverance, and we can teach each other, hey, how did you overcome this? Because this shit's not going to go away. This world is really fucked right now, and we're going through a huge shift, and it's cool. It's kind of cool. I'm not glamorizing it in terms of people suffering. I have had a lot of financial setbacks because of the economy here in Australia. It's been really hard. It's been rough as fuck here in Australia. Like, there's a 0.8% rental rate right now, approval rate. And like I said, people that have $150K in their bank account for a down payment for their 10%, they can't qualify for anything more than like a 2-bedroom, $1.2 million shack. Like that's a conversation multiple people are having. So, not only that, but everything that's happening back in the United States, which is crazy for me because I'm not there, and that's really weird for me too. I feel like I wasn't supposed to be there. And when I left in 2016, it just fucking went to shit. And it's like, without sounding like the protagonist sort of nonsensical mentality, I took it as a sign that there's a reason why I'm supposed to be isolated right now. And the reason, everything was just weird and happening. I became very isolated moving here. Everything started to fall apart in my life, like dramatically. And then the world literally like went on lockdown, and then more shit. It's been a battle. So, and I know that so many of you have had harder battles, because I hear your messages and I hear about fucked up shit that your partners, how they've treated you because of your, path, or how your parents have treated you, or getting fired from a job because of having like a sigil on your jewelry, just nonsensical stuff that just gets, that's discrimination. You can't be doing that shit. And, for me, it's like there's a strength in that, because so many of us walk alone. We don't need each other, but we do need each other in a sense, because we are human. We're spiritual beings in this human form. We're human beings, and we need love, and we need support, and we need to be able to be vulnerable. And that's what I've learned working with fallen angels, is I've seen their aspects of vulnerability at times. I've seen the beauty of them. I've seen the ugly in them. I've seen some of their capacity that I have the capacity to see, because we don't have the capacity to see them at their full-fledged potential. It would destroy us. I've even asked that. That's so stupid, right? Like, am I able to see that? And I got laughed at. It's like, you're so foolish to think that's never going to happen. It would be like trying to fill up, a 100 ml cup with like 2 liters of water. It's just, it would just not, but with pressure, and it would just like explode, right? Like, I'm not a sciencey person, but that's what I'm trying to get at. Maybe a balloon is like a better analogy for that, because like if the balloon had the capacity for like 100 milliliters, and then you're putting a fucking gallon of water in there, it's just going to explode. And that's what would happen to us if we saw that capacity. But they do show us aspects of themselves, and I do have permission to talk about anything. I know what not to say, and I know what to say, and I know other people do too. But I also think that there is this sort of unnecessary secrecy, gatekeeping sort of thing in the left-hand path community, the satanic community, this sort of stuff, because there's multiple communities within this community, and I just don't give a fuck. So I just say community for lack of a better term, because I don't really feel like I'm part of any community. I just feel like I get to cross paths with some really interesting people, and a lot of these people that I know so much more than I do, and it's just beautiful to get to see the things that they learn. And when you do that, please don't be the type of person that's like, I'm an eclectic witch, so you ain't tip. It's like, bitch, go fucking get your own trinkets, okay? Let me just have my shit. So, but in all seriousness, some people do ask, like, oh, I noticed that you do this for witchcraft. What I share, I'm okay with people using, and if I weren't, it wouldn't work for you. So if it's not, it won't work for you, or if I give a warning, it would backfire if it were something, which I think a lot of practitioners should do for their workings, to be honest. But I'm going to conclude here. So anyways, I'm going to leave it at that. This has been such a beautiful experience, and I would love to hear any feedback that you have, any topics that you would like to discuss on here. I'm more than happy to take suggestions. I have like 20 topics that I want to get involved in, but I'll leave it at that. So I'm going to wrap it up, you guys. Take care, and I'll see you on our next nightcast on the Rook.